Original.
Like, well, if I'm too good for the damn job, why didn't I get the job? Oh my god, it's immediately a no. What is this? You know when people just think, yeah, she's not gonna do it. It cost me so much. I also took a personal loan. I'm too scared to even look at what my credit score is now. I was missing my mortgage payments. I was missing my loan repayments. Like, anybody that tells you starting a business is easy, there were nights I didn't sleep. Like, it was like the realization of just how much I had lost, you know, trying to chase this business. I knew I did not want to live in Nigeria. There was no way this place was becoming my home. I just had to get out of there. Hey beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while. Firstly, apologies. I was greeted back to the UK with a cold and hay fever. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of snivelling going on, so sorry for that in advance. But I thought I would give you guys like a life update. I know a lot of you are curious about like what prompted me to kind of move to Nigeria, start my own business, why am I now back after a year, what's been going on in my life in that time. So I thought I'd do a sit down video. My camera is already flashing at me that like the battery's gonna die, which is just awesome. So I thought I'd do a sit down video, do a get ready with me, hair and makeup. The basic things that I've not been able to do. Like, not even like I've not been able to do it, because obviously people live in Nigeria and they do their hair and their makeup, but I just haven't done, you know, in literally a year. Like, I feel like I sacrificed a lot to start the business, and one of the things I sacrificed was beauty. So like at the moment I'm obsessed with like doing my skincare routine, which I just haven't done in a year, and doing hair and makeup, yeah, that's gonna be different. So this video is sponsored by Elfin hair. So they sent me hair. They sent it to me actually quite a few months ago. It is only just now that I'm like, okay, I've got time, let me talk to you guys, let me get glammed up. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I really hope this video is recording with sound, because I can't do it again. Actually, let me just check, because I really don't have the patience to do this again, and I don't have the good health either actually. Okay, so this is kind of like an unboxing, although there is no box. But yeah, just gonna see what the hair is like. Yeah, so they wanted me, Elfin Hair wanted me to try their 4C hair, and I was like, okay, well that's different, because I've never, you know, had a wig that was like 4C and pretty much similar texture to my natural hair. So one thing, like, people think I don't like my natural hair. I like my natural hair a lot. One thing I don't like is that when it's not relaxed, even when it's relaxed, it's just short. I'm not a fan of short hair. So if my natural hair was longer, I'd wear it a lot more. And I also hate how dry it gets, and I also hate how hard it is to like style, maintain in its natural form. So yeah, I thought it'd be different to try a 4C wig. Already I'm thinking it's looking interesting, but obviously it needs to be two-souled and loved and cared for, so we're gonna do that to it. So yeah, it's like a lace wig. All the info about the hair will of course be linked in my description box. If you like it, you can check it out. If you don't like it, you don't have to, and all that jazz. I'm like really fighting the urge to sneeze. Okay, so to start right at the beginning, the year was 2021. It was December, and obviously we're kind of starting to get through COVID at that point. We're starting to come out the other end of COVID. You know, life's kind of returning back to normal, and you know, COVID for me was such a blessing, because it literally gave me the freedom that I wanted. I think a lot of us just really loved work from home. I know there are people that didn't love it, but most of us loved work from home. You felt like you didn't have to commute as much. I didn't have to, because my job was in London. I was still based in Hampshire, so I no longer really had to commute. You guys will know that I actually went to work for a month in a private villa in Lanzarote. So like, COVID just allowing me to live the dream. I had much more freedom than ever before. Obviously I'd worked for myself before, like I'd done YouTube full-time before, and that obviously I could do from anywhere in the world, but it didn't come with the same financial freedom that having a very well paying job in tech did. So I used to work in tech sales for a company in London. And I really liked the job for the most part, mainly because I was very good at it, and they recognised that I was very good at it, and with that came a lot of perks. But that's actually part of the reason I actually ended up leaving the UK and starting my own business, because it got to the point now where, you know, they were restructuring, they were making changes, you know, into management and what they wanted, you know, the salespeople to achieve. And I remember, you know, my job was always account management, which was meant like I managed a lot of our existing accounts. I did some new business, but I never had to go hunting for it. Hunting is more like cold calling, you know, sending lots of emails. Hey, I want an interview, I want a meeting, not an interview, I want a meeting. And I've always hated that part of sales, and that's one of the key reasons like that drew me to this job. It didn't have any of that when I first started 2 years beforehand. So they're putting a lot of pressure on me to like change my job title. They actually wanted to change my job title. They wanted to change the role of the job, and I kept pushing back. I wrote quite a few letters to senior management, like, it's not fair, you can't just change my job, you know. My job role 2 years down the line, but it just got to a point where I was kind of sick of going back and forth with them. I think they were getting sick of me too. They felt like I was entitled. I felt like I wasn't entitled. I've outperformed everybody else in this team for 4 years, you know, so you can't be entitled when, you know, you're actually killing it. So that was kind of it. Like, I started to have a very healthy dissatisfaction with the job, and I started to look for other jobs. I'm just gonna try and tease out the hair and just see how much volume we can get, because it's all been squashed, and just see what it looks like before I pop it on my head. So a lot of dissatisfaction with the job. I started, you know, the job search, and I found like a job role that I really like the look of. The money was quite a bit more, again, primarily account management, a little bit of new business. You know, everything was good, and I started interviewing, you know, it's in tech as well, and got through to like the last stages. And you, like, once you get to like mid to senior level, like, the interview processes for these companies are tough, they're demanding. But one thing I'm very good at is interviewing. So I had my brag file, which is like all the achievements I've had in my previous roles, you know, how much I've smashed sales targets, what my accounts have to say about me. I just had like all this amazing stuff that any employer would kill to know about their new hire beforehand. And I brought it to the final stage interviews with this guy who would be my new boss. And you know, when you leave an interview and you know you've killed it, you know you've absolutely killed it, and then I didn't get the job, and I was like, what? So I wrote the guy an email like, I don't understand, please explain it to me. I do want to make improvements, you know, for the next opportunity that comes along, and, you know, let me know what I could work on and change. And he wrote me a letter that was like literally the trigger for everything. The letter was like so nice and so polite, and the basic gist of it was, don't change anything, you were amazing. Like, it was, you're too good for the job. I'm like, well, if I'm too good for the damn job, why didn't I get the job? Like, sir, why didn't I get the job? And it's funny because I've been watching like reels about interviewing and like job process and all this stuff, and one that has stuck with me was like, sometimes you won't get jobs that, you know, you're very well suited for, because the hiring managers worried that you're gonna come after their job, you know, a few months down the line, or the hiring manager feels insecure about hiring somebody as competent or whatever as you. So that was kind of what in the back of my mind I'm thinking, because I'm like, okay, I'm great. I smashed the interview. He had like 3 members of his team on the final interview as well. I knew they were all loving me, all loving my answers. So I'm like, make it make sense. So after I got that email, like, you're too good, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. If this man is telling me I'm too damn good for this job, maybe I should listen. The people that start their own businesses, they don't have 2 heads, they don't have 5 heads. Why am I looking for another job when I could be, you know, doing something for myself? So it was maybe like a few days later that I came up with the idea to start the garden. Pop this bad boy on my head and see what we're working with. Oh my god, it's immediately a no. What is this? I look like an Afro clown. I don't know. I know people are gonna rip me to shreds for saying that. But you know the shape of clowns' afros? Yeah, I feel like that's currently the shape that's going on. We're gonna have to change this. I honestly feel like my mom would love this wig. Stop laughing, Mimi. Okay, let's let's keep going. So obviously I've got to get makeup on the lace just so it's going to match my skin tone, so that's what I'm going to do next, and just hope for the actual best with the outcome. So use my foundation. I've used L'Oreal True Match for years. I think I used 9C. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 9C. Just lightly go over the lace front with this. So yeah, I started thinking, what am I going to do? And honestly, the idea for the garden came to me instantly, and it's kind of came around the, like, where it came from is I'm not someone who's been thinking about my wedding my whole life. I'm really not at all. The only ever thing I've known about my wedding was that, you know, it would be in a garden and it would be like at night and there'd be lots of beautiful lights. Like, I don't even know who the hell I'm marrying, obviously, but I knew that, like, that was like the only kind of dream I'd ever had about my wedding. And some of you may know that my dad owns an event center in Nigeria, in Ibadan, and it's an indoor hall. And I'd always noticed that in Nigeria, most weddings take places in indoor halls, like that's where their receptions are. And I thought, hang on a second, like, why is that? There must be other people like me that, you know, want to have like an outdoors gardeny wedding and they just don't have a lot of options for that location. So I started to think, okay, well, that's different. Like, I feel like if you want to start a business in this day and age, it's always a good place to start bringing something to the market that isn't already there or isn't readily available to all. You've got a harder challenge if you're trying to do something that, you know, there's lots of other options and you have to, in essence, do it better than everybody else to be successful. So I was like, okay, this is different. It's kind of a USP because there's not many around, but there are a few. So I was like, let me go to Nigeria and let me do some market research. So I had the idea for the garden as an event center, but I also wanted to be kind of entrepreneurial about it and kind of like multiple streams of income. And like, when we don't have events, because you're not going to have events every day, what can I be using that space for that would also make me money? And I thought a restaurant stroke lounge. Lounges are very popular in Nigeria and Ibadan especially. So I was like, okay, well, there's definitely restaurants and lounges around. Let me go see like the level I want, a level of like luxury, but not too luxury, because I want it to be kind of affordable to most people in Ibadan. So let me go and see what that's like. So literally the very next month, to be honest, I was already going to Nigeria that month anyway. I already had a trip planned. I was like, okay, I was in Nigeria, I was going to be doing market research. Actually, to be honest, just a few days before I flew to Nigeria, I lost my granddad. Sad, not going to go into it. I was actually crying about that this morning. I lost my granddad, and, you know, that's kind of where the name for my business actually came from. Like, my restaurant is called the Arinze, and that was my grandfather's surname. That's my mother's maiden name. So it was kind of like a tribute to him. I think a lot of people don't know where that name came from because it's a very Igbo name, and I'm Yoruba because my dad's Yoruba, but my mum's Igbo. So anyway, that's kind of where the name came from, because I lost my granddad right as I was starting this journey, this adventure. So I went to Nigeria. I did all the market research I wanted to do. To be honest, I've been doing quite a lot of it online because you can see what the major lounges and restaurants are. Let me sit back a bit so we can get more of this wig in the frame. I'm trying to figure out where to put a parting. I'm not even, okay, I will glue it down eventually, but let me try and, I know somebody in this comment section is going to be like, oh my god, it suits you, Mimi. Double F you. So yeah, so I went to Nigeria, did some market research, did a lot of it online as well before I got there. What are like the biggest popular restaurants and lounges? What are their price points? Are they making money? Do people in that vicinity, that area, that locality, whatever, have money to spend if I'm going from a more upscale kind of place? So I did the research, and all looked good, all looked favourable. I attended some weddings as well. I tried to learn as much as possible about, you know, the culture when it comes to events, weddings, the market when it comes to spending capacity, disposable income, all that good stuff that you need to know. And I was convinced. I was like, okay, this seems like a viable business plan. There's definitely a market for outdoor event centres, and even though there are quite a few restaurants, I'm not seeing anything here that was like blowing me away, or I'm thinking, you know. Hey guys, so yeah, my camera died. No shock there, and I've charged it for a little bit, but it is still like practically dying, so I have to be super quick. But just off camera, what I did was I just went through the whole wig with water and like a bit of hair mask, just to like condition it and trying to define the curls a bit more. And then I used, it's covered in hair now, a Weather Shockwaves hair mousse to set the defined curls, and that's just giving it a bit more length, a bit more curl definition. And yeah, I went from laughing at this wig to kind of digging it, but we'll see at the end like what the situation is. And then I went through with the Got To Be hairspray and just laid the wig down, and now I've got like a scarf around it just so while it sets. So I'm going to start on my makeup. I met my now manager. I met her by advertising on Instagram that I was looking for a personal assistant. So she actually, I advertised, but the company I advertised with was an Instagram job board in Ibadan. They never posted the advert, but what I ended up doing was just going through their other posts, recent ones, and seeing who had been commenting recently that they're looking for a job. And I DM'd her and I was like, hi, you're looking for a job? I'm only going to be in Nigeria for 2 weeks, but I'm looking for like a personal assistant, just somebody to like go around with town with and help me out, because you have to be careful like going to Nigeria when you speak like this. Everybody's just going to see a cash machine. Things that should cost, you know, maybe like, let's say £5, they will tell you that the cost is actually £60. So I wanted to have somebody local, someone who spoke Yoruba, because I don't speak Yoruba, who can like bargain for me, advise me, make sure I don't do anything that, you know, would be a bit of a danger to my health. And just, yeah, I wanted a bit of assistance as well. So I reached out to her. We went out together for the 2 weeks I was there. She helped me with loads of things. She did not start out as my manager. I actually had a different manager who I actually met. It was a guy I met. He was one of my boat drivers. So by the time I got back to the UK, I'd started building my business plan, you know, I started building my menu, price points, how much I was going to charge. I was doing my estimations of how much I thought the business could potentially earn, how much everything would cost me. I started doing research online for how much furniture from China would cost, shipping, everything. So by March, April, like it was 3 months later, I had done so much research. I had a plan of what I was going to do, what the business was going to look like. Like everything was very well defined, very well planned. That was literally all I spent my time doing, was just research, planning. And I sent my business plan to my sister, my brother, my cousin, you know, my dad. I wanted everybody's opinion, you know, and everybody just kind of, you know, when people just think, yeah, she's not going to do it. I feel like everybody just thought, oh, yeah, it's just another idea she has. She's not going to do it. But everyone's like complimentary, like, yeah, fine, looks good. But I did it. So I was back in Nigeria in April for my granddad's funeral. And actually before I left, the first time I was back in January, and one of the main things I was doing is I was looking for a venue, and I could not find a good location at all. I had in my mind a location I wanted to be, which is like the up and coming area in Ibadan. There were a lot of, not a lot of, but quite a few restaurants and lounges opening on that road, and I was like, I want to be on that road. That is the popping spot. I want to be on that road. And I remember my realtor at the time was like taking me to this other place, and I did not like I liked the compound and the environment, because I wanted a garden, and it naturally had the vibe of a garden. Like they planted a lot of trees, palm trees, lots of trees that take years to plant, that I wouldn't be able to plant and see to come to fruition, you know, in the next few years. Like they already had that in place. but I did not like the location. I was like, this is like, it was on the main streets, it was a busy road, but it wasn't like a very nice neighborhood like the other place, and it was more affordable than the other places I've been looking at. But I remember I was like, no, I don't want to be here, this is not what I want. I want to be on that road, you know, where all the other popping places are. And the realtor was like, well, there's so many places here, are you sure this is where you not open your business, because there's going to be a lot of competition. I was like, yes, this is where I want to be, this is clearly the place to be. It didn't work out that way, you know. The property I saw there was going to need a lot of work because it wasn't really giving garden, it was very run down. Not that the place I was looking at in Songo, let's say property number 2. Property number 1 was gonna need a lot of work. It was where I wanted to be on that specific road, but the guy wanted more money than I was prepared to pay. We went back and forth a few times, and that was not, I'm not calling property 1, that was not the first property I saw by any means. You know, I saw another property that I thought was perfect, and then the family were in a dispute because, you know, the dad had died and he had multiple wives and the children were fighting between themselves. So I was waiting for weeks trying to find out, would I get that property, could they come to an agreement? No. So in the end, just because we were running out of time, I made the decision to just go for property number 2, which initially I didn't want, but I thought for all the main points I'm looking for, I wanted something on the main road that people would pass by, like it'd be easy to get to, people would pass by and would see the place. I wanted something in a busy area that was quite safe, and I wanted something that did have a garden vibe and wouldn't need too much. So it ticked a lot of the boxes for me, and I ended up taking that property. So in April, when I was back in Nigeria for my granddad's funeral, I signed the paperwork, I paid the money. I had to pay, I think I had to pay 2 years up front. I had to pay legal fees. I just had to pay a lot of money. Like, I think half the initial investment into the business was the property payment, you know. And I'm so happy that I ended up getting that property and not the one I wanted, because literally in the last year, like 6 other restaurants and lounges and spots have opened up on that strip that I was so convinced I wanted. And, you know, the competition there is now crazy mad, and I just thank God I didn't, because I would have made it so much harder for myself, you know, insisting on that location when that was clearly not the sound business move to make. Definitely need a little bit more blending here. So yeah, I signed the paperwork. I had my manager in place from the boat driver, and we were working together quite a lot. The one thing I didn't want was something that would be too much of a fixer-upper, but it was one hell of a fixer-upper. I would say I spent a ton of money. I don't even remember how much now, but I spent a lot more money. I think that is where my calculations of what I was planning to spend on the business and to what I actually spent, that was where the largest disparity was, because most of the other things I'd had really good accurate information about how much the furniture was going to cost me to buy, how much importation fees were going to be from China. I knew how much the property was going to cost me to lease. What I didn't actually know was accurate information about how much, you know, renovating that property would cost me. You know, everybody would give me quotes and things, and then I would choose, you know, the cheapest, not gonna lie, or relatively the cheapest, and then they would start the job, and then within a few days, oh, we need this, we need that, it's more than you thought. I just feel like that was the scam, now that I look back on it, because it happened so many times. That was the scam. They would underbid what they knew it actually cost to get the job, and then once you've started, you're kind of stuck. You can't go, well, no, I don't want it anymore, I'm stuck, you've already invested. And then they give you like the real price. So renovating that cost me a lot of money, and luckily, like, I did trust my manager at the time because he was in charge of a lot of the things. I had to paint the whole building, build a toilet, like I had to build the actual outdoor garden from scratch. So much went into that. Even the property wasn't properly fenced, like, so much. I had to build a well. We didn't have running water, we didn't have electricity, so that took months. That took about 2-3 months to do. And then by July, I was in Nigeria. I was like finishing off the last bits of the renovation on ground, and we were getting ready to launch. So the furniture, the decor, all the stuff, because I wasn't just building an outdoor garden for that as a location for weddings, I also wanted to be able to offer the decorations part of it as well, and do, you know, floral decoration, fabric decoration, so many things I had to buy. So apart from the furniture for the lounge, I had a lot of decor coming in as well from China. So I had like a 20-foot container. It cost me like, I don't remember how many, so many things cost me, but I remember that cost me shipping, just shipping that container cost me about £6,000 for the shipping and the clearing. No, I feel like clearing cost me a lot more than 6,000. Just shipping cost me 6,000, and then I paid, you know, God knows, I'd probably say about 10,000 in total for the clearing, the transportation with the shipping. So about 3,000 to 4,000 for clearing, transportation of everything. Like, when I look back on how much I spent and how much I invested. And by the way, I know you guys will be wondering, how did I afford it? It's a very good point. So obviously well, I was like, obviously, some of you will know I was saving to buy a second property. Not the second property, because I was going to sell this one I'm in and just upgrade. So the money that I've been putting aside, I decided to put it into the business, because I was like, money makes money. I could live in a nice house and be working a 9 to 5 and not be happy, not changing my life. Or I could use that money that I've been putting aside and risk it all, try and change my life. So I did that, but it cost me so much. I also took a personal loan. So I didn't take a business loan because they're harder to get. I had exceptional credit. Like I didn't have a late payment in 6 years, nothing missed, like exceptional credit. It was really easy actually for me to get my loan, I'm not gonna lie. Just because I had a very good track record of paying my credit cards, paying, like I didn't miss anything. That is not the case anymore. I'm too scared to even look at what my credit score is now. So yeah, I had my personal savings and I had a personal loan as well, and that was how I financed this. And it was a huge risk, a huge gamble. You know, but yeah, that's how I did it, because I'm sure some of you guys have questions about that. I won't tell you how much of a loan I got, how much, just because people, they're just here, they don't like you, they don't even want you to win, they just want to know how you did it, how your sauce, and the plan is they'll try and use it against you or whatever. No, it's really not anybody's business. But yeah, those were the biggest costs I had. You know, the amount of stuff I bought from China cost me a ton of money, shipping it, the clearing fees and transportation fees of the container to Ibadan cost me a ton of money. The property, like, yeah, it racked up, and the renovations. So by July, maybe I'd been in Nigeria for like 2 weeks. We got our very first booking and I was so excited. I massively undercharged. But to be fair, I was doing like an opening promo to let people know we're here, brand new business, we weren't well known in the industry, didn't have any reputation at all, had never done any events, like, so we were starting off small. I remember, like, I charged for a 50-person event like £50, like, pretty much, you know, for the location, the furniture and the decorations. And I was so happy because we got the first event like within a week, and we got a second event in that same week, and I was thinking, yes, not really paying attention to the fact that I could not run a viable business if I was charging people £50 after spending well over £50,000 on this business. But yeah, like, we seem to have like a really good start. I'm not gonna lie, I got my first 1,000-person event in the first month. You know, that paid, you know, £500,000 like 500, 600, at the time it was about £700. So that was quite a big jump from 50 quid to like 700 quid, and things were going really well. The good thing is, like, I speak well, people love, you know, Nigeria, they love, you know, people that are educated or from abroad. They do see it as better, and I'm not gonna lie, I capitalized on that. But also I have a sales background, so I would go into these meetings. This event, 1,000-person event, was with a school board. They wanted a presentation, I absolutely smashed it. Went to the meetings, absolutely smashed that. But even for what they wanted, a 1,000-person event for like £700, that's what the exchange rate was at the time, it was ludicrous, it was ridiculous. I damn near killed myself trying to make magic happen and turn water into wine. And that was kind of like the experience I would say I had for the very first 6 months of that business. People wanted, you know, really nice, great parties, but they, in Ibadan at least, they didn't want to pay for it. Like in Lagos, people have money and they're happy to spend it. Here they do kind of have money, but they are very tight-fisted with it. And you know, I find it quite frustrating because, you know, I've spent so much money buying all these really nice decor items, importing it all, and people don't want to pay. But what I found was by the time July and August came, I didn't have, my initial plan was I would start with the garden, the decorations and events venue part of the business, and then by September I wanted to launch the Orinze, which was the restaurant, the lounge part of the business. By August it became very apparent to me that I did not have any money left. There was no money to build the outdoor space, to start the restaurant, absolutely nothing. But I'd started to see progress with the, you know, garden. So I was like, okay, don't lose faith, keep on going. And I did. But it was now at the point where, you know, I was months into investing into this business, you know, like 4 months into, like, after I'd got in the property, after I'd paid for shipping, after I'd bought all this stuff from China, you know, my credit cards were maxed out. Fact, I was missing my mortgage payments, I was missing my loan repayments. Like, anybody that tells you starting a business is easy, there were nights I didn't sleep. Like, I would have such anxiety. I would be thinking, what on earth have I done with my life? I had no money in my bank account. I owed so much money. I didn't know how I was going to pay this bill, how I was going to pay that bill. And the little money I was bringing in from the garden was not enough to justify by any means making the investment I did. Look at me just chatting away and forgetting that I'm meant to be doing makeup. Okay, so I would say it was now September when I was actually meant to be opening the Orinze. I'd probably done a few events under the garden, which was good. Like, I'd undercharged for all of them, but it was helping us build a reputation. We were getting like a body of work, you know, that we can post about, send to other potential clients and say, we've done this, look what we've created, we can do your events as well. I would say it helped a little bit that my dad had an event centre, but not massively. I think the only time that's really benefited me was like we had a 360 machine, and when we first started, my dad would let me go there with my 360 camera. Literally be begging people when he had events, like, could you please, like, you know, give us 1,000 naira, which is like £1. There's literally £1 now. Give us 1,000 naira, you know, and we'll film this video for you. And we would have to, like, kind of be like hawking on the street. I think people think that my dad or someone helped me with this business. Absolutely nobody. Like, I got the loan, it's solely in my name, the business is solely in my name. I'm very proud of that. Like, I'm very, very proud of that. And it wasn't something that I did overnight. It was years of saving for my next property. It was years of accumulating an exceptional credit score. It was months of planning. Yeah, and still it did not go to plan. So I remember, like, that was the only way we were making money when we very first started, like, hawking and begging people to use our 360 machine at my dad's event centre. And I would be on the floor. I remember I would be on the floor on my hands and knees, because we had this like gun machine that we would like shoot money into the air when people are spinning, and we used to use it a lot when we first started. So I'd be there with like 2 members of staff, maybe sometimes 3, and we'd blow the gun, and then each time it would spritz the money everywhere, and I'd have to get on my hands and knees and be picking it up just to do it over and over again. And I would have insane back pain, knee pain, you know, it was mad. And I'd probably make in a day like 30 quid from doing that all day. And my manager at the time, like, I remember he would be like approaching people, but he would never be on his hands and knees, and he'd always show up in a suit, and nobody ever knew that I owned the business or I owned the machine, because I was always on the floor picking up money, and like people thought he owned it. yeah, a bit of a tangent there. So I think shortly around that period I did fire him. Like there had been a few things that had gone wrong, like mistakes he'd made during like our very first event. He'd been pumping water, forgot that he'd put the pumping machine on. The generator kept failing. We were running around like mad people, like, why does the generator keep failing? And he completely forgot that he was the one that had done that. And you know, for me, I hate leaving a bad impression with clients in business. I just think it's poor form, and I just felt so disappointed that like this woman's birthday party had had those sort of interruptions. Another day, like, he left our stores wide open. Our security guard had to call me like, Mimi, I've been trying to get hold of the manager. He's gone home, he's not locked the stores. I'm really worried if anything disappears, I'm gonna get into trouble. But like thousands and thousands of pounds and dollars that I'd spent buying all this stuff, he just left all the doors wide open. And I was like, at this point, you're playing with my business, you're playing with my livelihood, and I'm not here for that. The final straw though was like some religious bank holiday in the country, and he's Muslim. And he basically told me the day beforehand he wasn't going to come to work for 2 days because it was a religious holiday. And I told him beforehand, like, you can have one of those days off. And he was like, well, I just found out it's actually a 2-day celebration, so I'm not coming to work. And I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like, that's it. Because first of all, we work in the events industry, so when there are holidays, you don't get it off. Those are the days that you work, because that's when people are going to throw parties and throw events. And secondly, you don't tell me the days you're going to take off. Like, I tell you, like, I'm sorry, my dad's a Muslim as well, and all his staff are working through this holiday. You don't tell me you're not coming to work because it's a holiday. Like, you know, I've given you 1 out of the 2 days off. If you need 2, go work a 9 to 5. You can get all those days off then, darling. You can't work in this industry. And for me, I just thought that was the final straw. There were other things like, okay, and I don't want to sound like I'm bitching about him, because he actually works for my sister now, and that's because I recommended him, because there were a lot of things that while he worked for me that he did that was super good, and I could confidently recommend him to work for my sister because of that. But like, just so many things that I kept seeing, especially in his attitude, like he would like to wear suits and be treated like the manager and like power positions of power, like, you know, and I'm like, grind, get up and go, get on my hands and knees. I don't care if nobody knows. I don't even care if they think I'm the servants. I don't need anybody to know that I own the business. Like, I'm all about the work, I'm all about getting results, I'm all about getting the job done. I remember one day, like, I sent him to this mall to like get us an interview with this business. Like, we wanted to bring our 360 camera there, and I don't think he'd gotten the right result. So I said, okay, let's go together. So we went together. I immediately got the meeting. I'm not going to say it's because I'm amazing and he wasn't. You know, I definitely think my accent and being a woman will open more doors and give me more opportunities. I immediately got the meeting. I got the owner's contact details. We found out all the information we needed to find out. And at the end of the meeting, I saw my manager, Paul, the manager that we just met with, aside, and he was like, I was here last week, just so you know, never judge a book by its covers. I may be something now, but you don't know who I'm going to be in the future. And I internally I lost it. I'm like, I know this man is not trying to jeopardize my future money over his ego. Like, I know he's not trying me like that. But it was just a pattern I saw in his behaviour. Like, he always wanted to feel quite important. He was very hardworking, very hardworking guy, you know. But I just thought, you know, at this point, we've got to go our own separate ways. And I actually said to him, like, you can't manage my business anymore. I'm happy to give you a supervisory role. It's going to come with a pay cut, and you can decide if you're happy with that. He was like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm happy with that. I was like, no, go home, think about it. Let me know later tonight if you're really happy with that. Because I felt like, you know, his ego was a bit too big. Like, I was like, no, he's not going to be fine with it. Like, he thinks he's fine, let him go think on it. No shock, he quit later on that day. And I went into managing the business. So anyway, we're still in September. I realised I had no money to actually launch the Arinze, and I booked a ticket to the UK, and that was a huge gamble because I probably used my mortgage for that month. Like, I had people living in the property, so they were essentially meant to be paying off my mortgage for me and paying off some of my bills for me, but essentially a lot of that money was actually going into helping me run, You know, the garden helped me invest into things like things I realized I needed for events. We had to buy carpets. I never even thought you needed carpets, you know, and I didn't like the idea of renting things. I felt like ownership was always going to be stronger than renting. So a lot of the things we needed to run the business that I hadn't bought, instead of renting it, I was buying, and I was spending so much more. I was constantly investing. Any event we had, all the money that I made went straight back into the business. I didn't make anything. For months and months, I didn't make anything. Stop talking, Mimi. Paint your face. So I was like, I have no more money. I need capital, you know, to run this business. So I came back to the UK, and my goal was actually to sell this camera that I'm filming with, my Canon 80D DSLR. And I was like, hey, I should be able to get quite a bit of money for it with the lens as well, because they're really good bits of tech. And my goal was also to sell one of my bags that I probably bought like the summer beforehand. It was my YSL envelope bag. So I thought maybe I'd get like 1,000 for the camera and the lens, and like 1,000, 200, 300 for the bag. And that was it. And unfortunately the camera smashed when I was traveling. So the lens, not the camera lens, but the back screen was broken. I was like, oh, bloody hell, I probably will not be able to get good money for that, and I don't actually have the money to fix it, to sell it. So I just kind of scrapped the idea, but I ended up selling my bag, and that was tough for me because I know people think, oh, it's just a bag. But I think that was like the realization of just how much I had lost, you know, trying to chase this business. Like, I was in so much debt. I had no peace. I didn't know how I was going to survive. I didn't know how my bills were going to be paid. I didn't have a single friend in Nigeria. Like, even till today, I was there for over a year. I didn't make one single friend. I worked 7 days a week. I worked till like my hands were raw, my knees were raw. I have never worked that hard in my life, you know, and it was constant, like just constant stress, constant worries, constant planning, constant reinvestment. And it was really hard to then come back here and just be like, I don't have anything else to give, and I'm now going to start selling, you know, the things that I worked so hard for many years. Like, I've worked so hard in my career, and I gave that all up, and I don't think it ever crossed my mind that I would get to the point where I was selling my own personal belongings to kind of see the business through for another few months. But that's what I was doing. I think, you know, on social media people think, oh God, like, yeah, she's already got events, you know, she's doing 1,000 person, you know, like, well done, you know. And in the back of my mind, I'm like at home, I'm crying, like, why on earth did I do this? What on earth was I thinking? I remember thinking that I'd made the biggest mistake of my life, like the biggest mistake of my life at that point. If I could have gone back and gotten all my money back and not done it, I 1,000% would have done that. But after I came to the UK, I sold my bag, raised like, I don't know, I think maybe 1,100 I got for the bag. It was enough to last me through 2 months. And luckily we were approaching party season and wedding season. So in the UK, like, summer's like when people get married and whatnot, like June, July, August, that's like wedding season in the UK. And that's not the case in Nigeria. In Nigeria, wedding season is actually like December, November and January, kind of around it, when people travel back home. And it's also like the hot season, it's not rainy season. So that's something I wasn't really aware of. And like, you know, the business has started off quite slow because I'd actually gone there in like a very, very quiet period for weddings and events. But after I got back, it was like October, we were starting to get bookings. And I remember, okay, so I'm hoping this is the last time my battery is going to die during this video, but yeah, you've missed another round of like prep. So I'm done with my makeup. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of natural, which is kind of like really my vibe these days. I don't like to do too much, probably quite a bit more than I like to do with makeup. But yeah, back to it before this dies again. Just last bit is to connect the hair and the makeup together. Do not be alarmed, there's going to be a patch of scalp that does not have makeup and is covered in hairspray, so I'm just going to neaten that up. So yeah, like wedding season was approaching. You know, we were getting tons of bookings. We now had quite a few bits of like events under our belt with the garden, and I think it was November, and we had like 2 million naira worth of bookings for December, and I was so happy. Like, that was kind of like the first time I was thinking, okay, my business, you know, really might make it. Like, a month and a half after I'd gotten back from selling, you know, my goods, I was thinking, okay, maybe my business really might make it. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to launch the Arinze. Like, let me just focus on the garden. Like, 2 million is like £2,000, a little bit upwards of that. I'm like, that's not terrible money, you know, like I can downsize my life and kind of try and live off of that, you know. But something I feel like I've skipped too far ahead of, just neatening and cleaning up, you know, excess hairspray around the hairline, is how hard my life was. I felt like I'd made a lot of personal sacrifices to start this business. I'm just gonna pop this up a bit. Yeah, I'd made a lot of personal sacrifices for my business, and I've never really spoken about how hard that was. I don't think I can multitask, so let me just quickly just tell you guys what my life was really like. Like, I've gone from having my own home, driving an Audi Q2, you know, living pretty much debt free, like living a really comfortable life, traveling 4 times a year at least, being able to afford most things that I want, and now I didn't even have basic necessities, or like that I'd grown up with and had become accustomed to. Like, I had a room in one of my dad's houses. Like, my dad doesn't live there, which is part of the problem because he didn't really care too much about, you know, how we were surviving. But I don't want to, like, I'm very lucky to have had a house that I didn't pay for, and aside from that, I also didn't pay for food. Like, they sent 2 meals a day from my dad's house where he actually lived. Like, his kitchen staff, whatever, would make 2 meals a day for me and my brother, and that is literally how I survived during this period where I had no money. Like, I had no money to eat, like but thankfully food and my accommodations were taken care of. But like, we didn't have a generator, and that's such a basic, simple thing in Nigeria, to even have like a tiny small one. We did not have a generator, so if there was no electricity, which for the majority of like the first 4 months I was in there was no electricity because it was rainy period, and when it rains for some reason there's no electricity, so I rarely had electricity in my house, which meant that, and in my room I didn't have running hot water, so I had to boil water to have a bath on the kettle, which meant that most mornings I couldn't boil water and have a hot bath. You know, I bathed out of a bucket in like plastic, and I know this is like the reality for a lot of people, but it was not my reality. And you know, I quickly became accustomed to a lot less than I ever had, you know. I remember one day just breaking down in tears because I was in the kitchen and a mouse or something ran across my feet, and I was just breaking down. Like, I was just not used to this at all. No electricity, no hot running water, no generator. Like, I had nothing. I didn't have friends. It was just to stay home and hope that my battery didn't die if I was watching Netflix. But how many days was I even home? I worked 7 days a week. Like, my manager at the time, well, recently told my sister that I'm a workaholic and he's never met anybody that works like me, and and my sister's like, that does not sound like my sister that likes to enjoy life and, you know, travel. Like, no one would ever, like, I love life. I work to live, I don't live to work, you know. But that was what I'd become, to see my dreams come to pass, to make sure that what I'd invested didn't ultimately fail. I worked my butt off, you know. And I was doing this with like no breaks. Like, you know, you go to your job, you might hate your job, but like at the weekends you can catch up with your friends, you can go for dinner, you can like have girl time. I had nothing, like, for a year almost. I had none of that, you know. Even my closest support system. I'm lucky I had my dad on the ground, but like my sister, my mum, the people that I lean on, I didn't have that. I didn't have my best friends, and there was so many times I just thought, this is just the worst thing I've ever done. Like, I was driving this banged up car that would break down every other week. The little money I was making, I was going towards maintaining that. Mosquitoes were eating me like nobody's business. Like, I had no joy. I had nothing that I could say I was waking up and looking forward to, other than hopefully one day looking forward to this business taking off. I remember, like, when I had that 2 million worth of bookings for December, I was like, oh my god, like, maybe I don't have to launch the Arinze, even though when I first started, you know, my planning, the Arinze was going to make up 80% of the turnover we brought in, like 75% actually, yeah, 75% of the turnover we brought in was projected to come from the Arinze, and 25% was projected to come from the garden, but the garden was making moves, and I thought, you know, I do not want to, at that point I knew I did not want to live in Nigeria. There was no way this place was becoming my home. I just had to get out of there, and I really felt like if I opened the Arinze in the restaurant, I would have to be there every day, because the biggest challenge, by the way, of opening that business and running that business with the staff, I had so many staffing issues. One thing I've learned is common sense is not common. We are very lucky to have, you know, the level of education most of us have. You know, yeah, I dealt with a lot of shit. Like, I have a reputation of firing people, and I don't care. I'm not gonna pay you monthly. And I was overpaying. I was like, everybody, you can have money. No, I don't do that anymore. Like, no. I've had some major staffing issues, and people's attitudes to work there, yeah, it's not in line with my attitude to work. And not just my work, I've never had a job that I wasn't borderline exceptional at, that I didn't give my all, that I didn't always have great results. So I couldn't relate to some people's lackluster attitudes to their jobs and their careers, and I just realised what they don't see as a career, for most of them it's a job, which is fair enough. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna have to be here all the time if I open the Arinze. I can't run a restaurant and not be here. It will run into the ground. And I almost didn't open the Arinze. I told my sister I'd made the decision I'm not gonna do it. I do not even know what for the life of me changed my mind. Probably God. Because like, he's the start of this whole show, because every time I felt down and depressed, like, God would just say to me, like, don't worry, I've got this, don't worry, I've got this. And there's a song that I always listen to. It's by Danny Goki. It's called You Haven't Seen It Yet, and it's all about like going through tough times and tribulations and not giving up, because the best is yet to come. You just haven't seen it yet, and just having faith. I gotta say, it must be God, because I told my sister I wasn't doing it. Within a week, I was already making plans. After I'd said I'm not doing it, I was making plans for the launch. So that December 2nd, we opened the Arinze to brand new challenges. I remember our launch night, we were full. I'd done lots of marketing, lots of advertising. All the furniture and really cool stuff that I bought from China were finally going to get used. You know, and we had such a disaster. I'd hired a chef who, one of the biggest fails I ever did was hiring that man. You know, opening night, we didn't have a cooker. Like, I bought one 2 days beforehand. He hadn't bothered to open it, hadn't bothered to test everything that I bought. I found out literally an hour into us opening that the cooker wasn't working. He didn't tell me as soon as he found out. We didn't have food. My dad was there with all his friends. Like, my dad was so angry. He brought all his friends. Nobody could get food. We had like one tiny stove where we were running the whole restaurant from. So many people were so upset, disappointed. People waited 3 hours. People didn't get food. It was awful. I laugh now. This was meant to be like a huge success story. I was beyond stressed. I was beyond devastated. I remember the very next day I was just broken. I'd closed the restaurant. I put out a statement we were not going to be opening that day. I apologized to everybody, and in my mind we were done. It was such a flop. I thought nobody's going to give us a second chance. Even my own father was furious with me. I was like, if my father's this angry, I can't imagine, you know, what the Ibadan people are feeling. I need to put makeup and define that parting a bit more, but I'm too into the story now. So I was done. Like, I was like, you people have ruined my business. Yes, I did blame other people, but maybe I should have like also gone and checked on that accountability. But my staff were talking to me, they're like, look, these things happen, like your business is not done, reopen, people will come. And I reopened, so it was Friday night we launched, I closed Saturday, I reopened Sunday after they talked me, you know, took some sense into me and told me don't give up, don't throw in a towel. I was done, guys. I was legit, I thought there's no way anybody's going to come back to this restaurant. People came, people actually came back, not people that had been there on Friday, because yeah, a lot of them swore they'd never come back. But people who didn't know, I don't know if they knew or didn't know, but people came back, and that kind of gave me hope. It was a slow start. Like, luckily December period is like people are going out, they want to celebrate, it's party season. But there were days when, you know, the whole entire day we'd have one customer and they might spend like 1,700 buying 2 drinks, which is like £1.70 almost. And you know, I just didn't give up. I was just like, you know, we're going to keep marketing, I'm going to keep putting it out there, advertising, making videos. You know, I get my staff to be in videos, making it look like we had lots of customers, you know, when we didn't. And luckily I've done YouTube and, you know, social media for years. Like, I knew how to make it look like our restaurant was popping and, you know, give them the glitz and the glam that they wanted to see. But by January, like, we were doing pretty good. Like, I'm not going to say it's been all plain sailing since then, but we figured out a lot of the kinks about opening night that had been an issue. New challenges were coming, like service. People complained about the service being slow, complained about waitresses not being happy. These are still things that I'm working on, you know, with the team, making sure like our customers are leaving happy. We definitely did not have the best reputation. Like, I just felt like people always complaining, and maybe to an extent, like, that is always going to be what it's like when you got a restaurant in this kind of industry. You're not going to please everybody, but I've tried to take it on the chin and just work on improving that and making sure we're delivering as much as possible good value for money. And I remember, you know, where I am now, obviously I've made the decision to come back. I feel like the business is doing really well, and to be honest, it is doing really well. Like, every Sunday we're at capacity, we're fully booked, we're just busy, we're consistently busy. People know us, like my sister and my brother, when they were in Nigeria, my sister said to me, like, my sister texted me the other day, she's like, I'm always bragging that my sister has the biggest spot in Ibadan, like, and I don't know if she's right, but I think she might actually be right, because when she was around, and she obviously ate at my restaurant, and you know, they all gave like really good feedback, which I'm super happy about. But then we were like, okay, let's go out somewhere. I never leave the restaurant anyway, let's go somewhere else. And we went to one of the spots that I thought would be like super popping. We actually drove past 3 spots, all of them were dead. And it was like the 4th place we went to, just went in like, there's obviously nowhere that's lit tonight. But it was like the only place that had been lit was the Arinze. Anyway, so honestly, the Arinze has been such a blessing. The garden is still doing really well, but I did have to refocus all of my attention to get the Arinze to where it is now, which I actually realized as I was filming this video that what I projected were potential earnings for the Arinze. We hit that this month. We hit that goal number in my mind, and we've only been open 5 months, and we hit that number. Like, it's a very profitable business, I'm not gonna lie. It's like at least 60% profit margins. And you might think, oh, I'm balling out. I'm not. Like, this season of my life is paying off debt, like paying off all my missed mortgage payments, my missed car payments, my missed loan payments, my credit card payments. Like, that's where I am right now, and obviously trying to rebuild my life in the UK. And I have a really great team. Like, my personal assistant, she worked as just a regular member of staff. Over time I promoted her to supervisor, and a few months ago manager. Like, she's really worked her way up, and just the level of trust I have in her. Like, literally this morning I woke up to a message and she was like, you didn't calculate this, you know, calculation right yesterday. You sent me 10,000 naira more than what it actually was. I've just sent it back to your account. Like, and that doesn't surprise me. She's just honest, hardworking, and you know, I've got a good team on ground now, like a team I really trust. I'm still very hard on them, like I shout, like I'm such a perfectionist. I'm like, this needs to be right. I've worked in, you know, hospitality for years in the UK. You have to smile, you have to be happy, be miserable at home. Like I have such high standards, and I just really hope that by the time the Arinze's been open for a year, we are without a doubt the biggest restaurant in Ibadan. I think we could be already. And you know, we're moving into a second round of investment into the business. I think in September I will be reinvesting, creating something just beautiful the way it is in my mind, and I can't wait for that. I'm back in the UK. Okay guys, no, for real, this is the last time my camera's gonna die. I'm done. So yeah, like I'm back in the UK for the most part. I've got CCTV cameras in the restaurant, in the kitchen, around the compound, so I can actually see what's going on the business from my phone. I've got staff that I trust. I check in with them every single day. What my life in the UK is gonna be like right now, I don't know. I'm kind of shaping it. Hopefully I'll be posting more, vlogging more. You know, I probably work an hour, maybe 2 hours a day. I'm responsible for obviously checking finances. I handle all the ordering. I also do all the customer service on social media posts as well. That's kind of it. But you know, I do have the luxury that I can do that anywhere in the world. I did just rejoin my gym the other day, and I played tennis for the first time in a year yesterday, so I'm very happy. I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity to build my life how I want it, and yeah, like we'll see what I end up building. Yeah, so this hair from Elfin hair, oh my god, it has grown on me. Like from when I first put it on and I burst into laughter, like yeah, it's grown on me. So I think, you know, it's shrunk quite a bit from when I first added moisture and water to it. So it'll be interesting to see if it continues to shrink and shrinks more. It was definitely the first time like I put it on, but I feel like with moisture and mousse and whatnot, the hair texture has kind of changed a bit, maybe more towards 3C. But I do really like it. I'm not gonna front and pretend like I've laid it for the gods. I really haven't. Like I'm gonna play around with it more. It does come with baby hairs already cut into place. They're quite thick and curly, so I've tried to trim them a little bit, but it'll be a time when I've got more time that I will actually go in and properly lay them. I feel like I really like the hair with like just like this bit pulled back a bit, but I don't have a clip, so I can't really rock it like that for now. But yeah, like I'm curious to see if like I feel comfortable like maybe wearing this on a date. I think I look cute. I think I look very cute. But yeah, so I like it. It's all linked below if you're kind of feeling like a more natural wig. It was quite easy to actually sort. I will say it shed a lot. It shed a hell of a lot, but luckily there's a lot of hair in there, and like yeah, it's not gonna miss it's not gonna miss the hair it's lost. But yeah, it definitely shed a lot. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Stay with me on my journey into rebuilding my life into God knows what. Single, super single, but currently enjoying swiping and seeing what the future holds. Like dating in Nigeria was an absolute fail, so let's see what dating back in the UK has to hold now that I've literally been out the dating game for a year. Like that's been a really good year, just focusing on myself. But I'm ready for love and whatnot, so yeah, I'm here just in me.
Just say no, 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 no.